The Dairy School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by DuPont Pioneer.
Robert Tobin here for the Dairy School down at the World Dairy Expo in Madison, Wisconsin, joined now by Heidi Johnson from University of Wisconsin Extension. Hey, thanks for taking the time.
Sure, no problem.
Hey, you just finished your presentation on cover crops and after corn silage, and I guess the big question is, why should we give that a shot? It's a busy time of year, trying to get a cover crop after corn silage. What are the benefits? Why should we give it a go?
Well, I think erosion control is really important. I think losing soil is not something that we can replace easily. So trying to do as much as we can to keep soil in place and keep it covered as much of the year as possible. But there's also other things like just having something growing there is good for the microbial community. And so those other things can also be good for the fields as well.
Yeah, so we're in Ontario, in open Canada, a lot of challenges with phosphorus runoff. That's always a consideration.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure that's a consideration here in Wisconsin.
Sure is.
Something for us to learn.
Yes, so phosphorus is often adhered to soil particles by reducing erosion, we're keeping that soil from leaving the field. Phosphorus is also in manure, and manure also helps, or cover crops also help keep manure in the field. So it helps to keep both from leaving, and that can really reduce phosphorus from leaving the farm.
Right. What about, a species selection?
Sure.
What's working for you folks in Wisconsin?
Sure, yes. After we've done a couple years of trials just looking at different species, and a lot of people would like to get some real diverse species working, but it's just a really challenging time. We're running out of light and warmth at that time of the year. So what we've found that really works the best is some of the small grains like spring barley, oats, and then for a little bit later planting would be things like rye or triticale. So those really work the best. In southern Wisconsin, I tell farmers, if it's before September 20th or so, you could really go with a spring barley, and as long as you get enough growth on it, then it'll winter kill, but you'll have the residue there the next year. Once you get a lot later than that, though, rye is really the go-to. Rye is very hardy in very cold temperatures. It can grow down to 34 degrees, so it's really the best option when you get late.
What about the radishes and the legumes?
I just don't see those working very well. The purpose of planting a cover crop is to try to meet your goals. So if you're planting things like a clover, your goal is usually to raise nitrogen or grow nitrogen. You're just not going to get enough growth on it at that time of the year for it to nodulate and grow, so you're not going to get nitrogen. So you're spending money on something that really isn't going to give you that benefit at that time of the year. Same thing with radishes. They are usually sold for compaction, for solving compaction issues, just not enough growth on them at that time of the year for them to really provide that benefit back to you.
What about planting methods? And I'm thinking post-harvest, drill, broadcast. I know you guys are flying a lot of planes.
Sure, yeah. Well, post-harvest, we do drill or broadcast seeding. You can either broadcast and just leave it on the soil surface, or you can work it in with some kind of a tillage pass. Obviously, the drill is going to give you great soil to seed contact, which is going to get the cover crop up and out of the ground a little bit earlier and give you a more solid stand. The airplane would come in if you want to do something late season prior to harvest. And you could use helicopters or highboys. We've found airplanes are probably the most economic and work the most consistently well. And so those are a good option for late season. I don't recommend farmers fly their cover crops on more than 2 weeks prior to harvest of the corn silage, because the cover crop just gets really tall inside of the canopy and then falls over because it just doesn't have the root system to keep it going in that low light environment.
Now, you've been trying some early season seeding. V5 in corn. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, we've been trying it here in Wisconsin. It's really in the experimental stages still of seeding it that early. Probably the most success has been using a modified drill of some sort, or when you're side dressing, you've got coulters going through that really gets the seed into the ground a little bit more. Those have been found to work a little bit better than just straight broadcast seeding. It just tends, because Broadcasting, it's longer for the seed to develop. The seed, it's really important that that cover crop grow early as fast as it can because the corn canopy is going to close soon. So it really needs to grow right away. So the drill or working it in, what works the best at that time of the year. And then you need a cover crop that can put up with shade, very much shade. So red clover is really the go-to that we've had the most luck with in Wisconsin. Annual ryegrass shows promise as well.
Question from a dairy perspective, dairy farmers, what about manure? I mean, you know, you've got your crop off, you know, you got to get your manure on that cover crop. You can't, incorporation. What are the challenges in that, from that perspective?
Well, if you are planting cover crop prior to harvest, obviously you're going to be putting manure onto your cover crop. And so there's a couple of different options. You can use some of these low disturbance injection tools that have come out, and those are actually working pretty well, assuming that they're set in a way that they're not very aggressive. The more aggressive you get with the incorporation of the manure, then obviously you're going to be ripping up your cover crop. So you want a truly low disturbance manure injector for that to work. Airways we've had a lot of success with too. They don't rip up the cover crop too much. Some farmers are just broadcasting right over the top of the cover crop. That works as well. You do need to wait, that one especially, you need to wait for the cover crop to get like 6 inches tall because you want it to be able to put up with all of that going over the top of it and not smothering it.
Final question for you is termination. You know, we're always trying to figure out, you know, whether we can plant into a green bridge or whether we have to have that crop, that cover crop sort of killed. What's your experience here in Wisconsin?
Well, we have a lot of farmers that are planting their crops into a green cover crop, and there has been some successes with that, but there's also been some failures, and so those failures always stand out in farmers' minds more. So generally my recommendation, if you are truly leaving it, just having it as a cover crop, you're not going to take it to forage, then just get it killed early. So kind of the rule of thumb is that 10 to 14 days prior to planting your corn. What research shows is that if you kill it too close to planting the corn, you can end up with some allelopathic issues or other problems with the corn. So you really want to give it that window of time to start breaking down before you put your corn back into it. It also physically is easier. If your fry is freshly killed, it's a little harder to plant into. After it breaks down a little bit, it's easier to plant into.
Hey, final question. We're here in Dane County. That's
it's my county.
Your county. Tell us about how you know, farmers are adopting corn, silage, and a cover crop to follow. Is it really sort of starting to take hold?
It is. There's a lot of interest and there's a lot of experimentation. There has been some negative experiences, especially with rye going into alfalfa and going back into corn silage. And that's why I'm very cautious, because those negative experiences spread like wildfire among the farming community, and it makes it harder for farmers to use cover crops. So it is slowly becoming a practice that they're used to and interested in, but it's going to take some time for them to really feel comfortable with them and feel confident that they won't hurt their cash crops.
Well, Heidi, thank you so much for taking the time.
Sure, no problem. Thanks.